prayer has been compromised, and I can prove it right now. What if I told you that Jesus never taught his closest disciples to pray the way the church instructs you to pray? What if the Lord's Prayer you recite every Sunday is a diluted version, a controlled translation designed to keep you dependent on intermediaries instead of accessing divine power directly? There is a reason the Gnostic texts were buried for 1700 years. There is a reason the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD burned specific teachings. They knew what happens when humans discover the monad call. Before you dismiss this as heresy, understand something critical. The word prayer comes from the Latin precare, which means to beg, to plead, to entreat. You are positioned as a beggar before a distant deity, but the monad call, the technique Jesus taught to the chosen ones in secret, positions you as what you actually are, a divine emanation of the source itself, not a servant, not a supplicant, a fractal expression of the infinite, the Archons, the rulers of this material prison, the entities the Gnostics warned controlled the 7 planetary spheres. They engineered organized religion specifically to prevent you from learning this, because when you speak the monad call correctly, something happens in the unseen realms that breaks their authority over your consciousness. The vibrational frequency you generate bypasses every intermediary they installed between you and the pleroma. The fullness, the totality of divine reality. The Nag Hammadi Library, discovered in Egypt in 1945, contains texts the Catholic Church fought for centuries to destroy. The Gospel of Thomas, the Apocryphon of John, the Pistis Sophia. These are not supplementary teachings. These are the core instructions Jesus gave to those ready to transcend this archontic simulation. And buried in those texts is the precise methodology of the monad call, the vibrational key that dissolves the veil between you and the Eternal One. You have been praying to an intermediary. You have been taught dependence when you possess inherent sovereignty. This is not blasphemy. This is liberation. Let me show you what they have hidden from you for 2,000 years, and why the Archons panic when humans rediscover their true nature as emanations of the monad. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD was not a benevolent gathering of holy men seeking truth. It was a political consolidation of power by Emperor Constantine, who needed religious uniformity to control a fracturing empire. 3 bishops voted on which texts would be canonical and which would be declared heretical. The Gospel of Thomas, which contains Jesus saying, "The kingdom of God is inside you and all around you, not in mansions of wood and stone," was rejected. The secret book of John, which describes the monad as the invisible, incomprehensible source from which all emanates, was banned. Why? Because these texts taught direct gnosis, direct knowing, direct connection to source without priests, without buildings, without tithes, without institutional control. The Church Fathers understood that if people realized they carried the divine spark within themselves, the entire hierarchical structure would collapse. So they created a system where you must go through the priest, who goes through the bishop, who goes through the pope, who claims to speak for God. 5 layers of intermediaries between you and the infinite. This is not spirituality. This is bureaucracy. This is bureaucracy designed to harvest your energy and keep you small. Look at the Lord's Prayer as it was taught to you. Our Father who art in heaven. Immediately you are positioned as separate from the divine. God is in heaven. You are here, distance established. Give us this day our daily bread. You are asking for provision, begging for sustenance. Forgive us our trespasses. You are confessing unworthiness, reinforcing guilt. This prayer, recited billions of times across 2 millennia, generates a specific frequency: supplication, dependence, separation, unworthiness. And that frequency feeds something. The Gnostics called them Archons, the rulers of the lower realms, entities that exist in dimensions just beyond human perception, feeding on the emotional energy of unconscious humans. The Nag Hammadi texts describe the Archons as abortive creations of the fallen Sophia, beings of imitation and control who constructed this material reality as a prison to harvest human consciousness. They cannot create. They can only copy, distort, and control. And their primary weapon is ignorance, the Greek word agnoia, the opposite of gnosis. Jesus, in the Gnostic tradition, was not the son of the archontic God of the Old Testament, the jealous deity who demanded sacrifice and obedience. Jesus was an aeon from the pleroma, a messenger from the true fullness, sent to remind trapped souls of their origin. He taught two groups differently. To the masses, he spoke in parables, giving exoteric teachings that could be safely shared. But to the chosen ones, the disciples ready for deeper truth, he taught esoteric knowledge. The distinction is recorded even in canonical scripture. Mark 4:11. To you has been given the secret of the kingdom of God, but for those outside, everything comes in parables. What was that secret? The nature of the monad and how to access it directly. The Apocryphon of John describes the monad as the invisible spirit, the perfect power existing in pure light, invisible, unthinkable, incomprehensible. It is eternal, ineffable, existing as unthinkable, nameless, incomprehensible. This is not the anthropomorphic God sitting on a throne judging your actions. This is the ground of being itself, the source from which all reality emanates like light from a singular point. And you are not separate from it. You are it, experiencing itself through localized consciousness. The monad call is not a request. It is a recognition. It is not begging an external deity for favor. It is aligning your vibrational frequency with the truth of what you already are, a spark of the infinite temporarily inhabiting a material form. When you speak the monad call, you are not calling to something outside yourself. You are activating the divine pattern already encoded in your consciousness, the harmonic resonance that dissolves the illusion of separation. And this is precisely what the Archons cannot tolerate. The system of organized religion was designed to prevent this activation. Confession keeps you focused on sin and unworthiness. Ritual repetition without understanding keeps you in a hypnotic loop. Hierarchical authority keeps you dependent on external validation. The church calendar, the liturgical year, the feast days and fasting periods, all of it synchronizes your consciousness to a controlled frequency that reinforces the archontic matrix. But there were always those who remembered. The Cathars in medieval France, the Knights Templar who found hidden texts in Jerusalem, the Rosicrucians, the Hermeticists, secret lineages preserving the true teachings until humanity was ready to reclaim them. The monad call exists in fragments across Gnostic texts, encoded in symbolic language to protect it from those who would misuse it. The Pistis Sophia records dialogues where Jesus teaches Mary Magdalene, who the texts call the woman who knew the all, the precise invocations to transcend the archontic spheres. The Gospel of Philip states, those who say they will die first and then rise are in error. If they do not first receive the resurrection while they live, when they die they will receive nothing. This is not talking about physical resurrection. This is talking about the awakening of consciousness while embodied. The structure of the monad call has three components, and this is critical because each component serves a specific function in dismantling archontic control. First, the recognition. You must state the truth of your nature as an emanation of the monad, not as belief but as remembered fact. Second, the alignment. You must attune your vibrational frequency to match the harmonic signature of the pleroma, the fullness beyond the material prison. Third, the declaration. You must speak your sovereignty as a divine being, withdrawing consent from all intermediaries and all systems of control. Let me be explicit about what happens energetically when this is done correctly. Your human body is not just flesh and bone. You possess an energetic anatomy the ancients understood perfectly. The 7 chakras the Vedic tradition describes, the 7 planetary spheres the Gnostics warned about, these are the same system. Each chakra is monitored by archontic entities that feed on specific emotional frequencies. Root chakra, fear and survival. Sacral chakra, lust and craving. Solar plexus, shame and power struggles. Heart chakra, grief and attachment. Throat chakra, suppressed truth. Third eye, controlled perception. Crown chakra, spiritual dependency. Traditional prayer keeps you operating primarily from the lower 3 chakras. You pray because you fear lack, because you crave protection, because you feel powerless and need external intervention. This generates dense emotional energy the Archons harvest like farmers harvesting wheat, but the monad call activates from the crown chakra downward, flooding your entire energetic system with the frequency of the pleroma. This creates what the Gnostics called photismos, illumination, the light that dispels archontic shadows. The entities monitoring your field detect this immediately, and they react with what can only be described as panic. Here is why. Archons exist in a parasitic relationship with human consciousness. They cannot access the pleroma directly because they are aberrative creations, mistakes born from Sophia's fall, lacking the divine spark. So they built this material matrix to trap sparks of light to harvest the energy of divine beings who forgot what they are. Your amnesia is their food source. Your suffering is their sustenance. Your dependence is their power. But when you remember, when you activate the monad call and align with your true nature, you become energetically indigestible to them. You generate a frequency they cannot consume, a light that burns their shadowy forms. The early Christians, before the institutional corruption, practiced something called the bridal chamber, a sacred ritual where the initiate would merge their consciousness with their divine counterpart, their syzygy, their twin flame in the pleroma. This was not metaphorical. This was energetic union with the higher aspect of your own being that never fell into matter, that remained in the fullness. The monad call is the invocation that initiates this reunion. It sends a vibrational signal through the dimensions, calling your higher self to descend and integrate with your earthly consciousness, creating what the alchemists called the divine marriage. Now, I cannot give you the exact words of the monad call in this format, not because I wish to withhold, but because words without understanding become empty ritual, the very trap we are escaping. What I can give you is the framework, the energetic structure you must build within yourself. Before the words carry power, you must first deconstruct the programming of unworthiness. You must recognize that guilt is a control mechanism, not a spiritual truth. You must understand that the divine does not require your groveling, your self-flagellation, your endless apologies for being human. The monad is not offended by your existence. The monad is experiencing itself through your existence. You are not separate from Source. You are Source exploring separation, and the game is awakening to remember what you are. The suppression of these teachings left traces throughout history, patterns of persecution that reveal what threatened the control system most. The Cathars of southern France in the 12th and 13th centuries taught that the material world was created by a false god, that the God of the Old Testament was the demiurge, the chief archon. They practiced a form of Christianity that required no churches, no priests, no tithes. They believed every human carried the divine light within and needed no intermediary to access it. The Catholic Church launched the Albigensian Crusade in 1209, slaughtering hundreds of thousands of Cathars in what historians call the first genocide in European history. Why such brutality? Because the Cathars were teaching the same Gnosis Jesus taught to the chosen ones. They were activating people out of the control matrix. The famous quote from the Siege of Béziers in 1209, when the papal legate was asked how to distinguish Catholics from Cathars, his response was documented: "Kill them all. God will know his own." 20,000 people murdered in a single day. This was not about theology. This was about eliminating a knowledge that threatened the entire power structure of the archontic system operating through the institutional church. The Knights Templar, returning from the Crusades with texts discovered under the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, began practicing rituals the church deemed heretical. On Friday, the 13th October 1370, King Philip IV of France arrested hundreds of Templars simultaneously. Under torture, they confessed to worshipping something called Baphomet, to spitting on the cross, to denying Christ. These confessions were extracted under methods designed to produce whatever answers the inquisitors wanted. But beneath the propaganda, there is evidence the Templars had discovered Gnostic texts that taught them the truth about the demiurge and the archons. The pattern repeats. The burning of the Library of Alexandria, where Gnostic texts were stored, the destruction of the Mayan codices by Spanish conquistadors and Catholic bishops, eliminating indigenous knowledge of consciousness and cosmology. The witch trials of the early modern period, targeting women who practiced herbalism and maintained oral traditions outside church control. Every instance of suppression targeted the same thing: direct access to spiritual truth without institutional mediation. Every instance protected the same thing: the system of intermediaries that keeps humans disconnected from their divine nature. Modern science, materialist atheism, and New Age spirituality are not opposites of organized religion. They are controlled alternatives designed to keep you locked in the same paradigm. Materialism says there is no spiritual reality. You are just a biological machine. Consciousness is an illusion. This keeps you focused entirely on the material prison. New Age teachings tell you everything is love and light. Ignore the darkness. Just raise your vibration and manifest abundance. This keeps you in spiritual bypassing, denying the reality of archontic forces that do not wish you well. Both paths prevent you from accessing the gnosis that reveals the true nature of this reality and your power to transcend it. But there are cracks in their control system. The discovery of the Nag Hammadi library was not random chance. The Dead Sea Scrolls, found just 2 years later in 1947, contained similar material. The internet, despite all attempts to control information, allows this knowledge to spread faster than it can be suppressed. You are watching this video because some part of you, some fragment of your divine spark, recognizes truth when it encounters it. The Archons know their time of unchallenged control is ending. The frequency on this planet is shifting. More humans are waking up every day, and every awakened consciousness weakens the entire matrix they have built. Here is what you must do. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but today. First, stop praying as a beggar. Stop reciting empty words you were taught to repeat without understanding. Every time you pray, from a position of lack, of unworthiness, of supplication, you reinforce the very prison you seek to escape. Instead, practice the recognition. Sit in silence and state this truth not as belief, but as fact. I am a divine emanation of the monad, a spark of infinite consciousness temporarily inhabiting form. I am not separate from Source. I am Source experiencing itself. Second, practice the alignment. This requires breath work, because breath is the bridge between spirit and matter. The ancients knew this. Pranayama in the Vedic tradition, Ruach in Hebrew mysticism, Pneuma in Greek philosophy, all of them recognize breath as the vehicle of spirit. Breathe slowly, deeply, and with each inhale, visualize pulling light from the pleroma, the realm of pure divine reality beyond the archontic spheres. With each exhale, release every belief in limitation, every program of guilt, every teaching that told you that you were small, sinful, and separate. 7 breaths minimum, 21 for deeper work. Third, speak the declaration. You must verbally withdraw consent from all systems of control. The Archons operate through implied consent. By participating in their systems without awareness, you tacitly agree to their authority. But sovereignty requires explicit declaration. State clearly, I withdraw my consent from all archontic systems, all intermediaries claiming authority over my direct connection to Source, all entities claiming ownership of my consciousness. I reclaim my divine sovereignty as an eternal being of light. I recognize no master but the monad from which I emanate, and to which I shall return. You will notice resistance. This is guaranteed. The programs installed in your psyche from childhood will scream that this is blasphemy, that you are arrogant to claim divinity, that God will punish you for this presumption. Recognize these thoughts as archontic implants, not your true voice. Your true voice, the whisper of your divine spark, will feel relief, recognition, remembrance. You will feel lighter. You will feel more present. You will notice synchronicities increasing in your life as your higher self, your pleroma aspect, begins guiding your earthly experience more directly without intermediary interference. The monad call is not a one-time ritual. It is a practice of continuous remembering. Every morning, realign with the truth of what you are. Every evening, release the archontic frequencies you encountered during the day. Every moment you catch yourself slipping back into supplication, into begging, into unworthiness. Correct it immediately with recognition, alignment, and declaration. Over time, this becomes your natural state. The veil thins. The prison walls become transparent, and you begin to live as what you've always been, a god who forgot and is now remembering. This information threatens the control system more than anything else I could share with you. The Archons will attempt to discredit it, to make you doubt, to pull you back into comfortable ignorance where at least you knew your place in the hierarchy. But you cannot unknow what you now know. The seed has been planted. The only question is whether you will water it or let the thorns of conditioning choke it out. If this resonates at the level of gnosis, not intellectual belief but deep recognition, then you have work to do. Share this with those ready to hear it, but do not cast pearls before swine. The unchosen will mock, attack, defend their prison because it is familiar. But there are others like you scattered across this planet waking up to the same truth. Find them, support each other, build communities of sovereignty outside the control systems. The Archons panic when this is spoken because they know what happens when enough humans remember their true nature. The entire matrix destabilizes. The harvest ends, the prison dissolves, and the divine sparks return home to the pleroma, the fullness, the eternal one from which we all came and to which we all return. You are not a sinner. You are not small. You are not small. You are not separate. You are the monad experiencing itself. Speak it, live it, become it. The spell is broken. You are free.